They have more degrees than a thermometer.
And when you're engaged,
stands for their interests.
There's a lot of
Your
planning.
daughters will be here and you will
I believe in mental health.
Make sure that we have mental
We travel together on the path to intentional leadership, one conversation at a time. We go down a new road of insight with an expert guest who knows what it takes to navigate the opportunities and challenges of leadership. Why? Because they've already been there. So grab your compass and whatever else you need, and let's set out, leading the way.
Well, welcome back. Leading the Way is here. We come back to you every month with another expert, another Leading the Way episode where somebody knows something about something else that we can learn from. And as always, I'm your host, Nagam Al-Samari, and I'm happy to be here with you on this journey because you know what? We learn together and better as a community. And if you are curious, I want you to stay curious. I want you to continue in that path of learning. And if you have not done so yet, this is what I want you to do. Take 20 seconds and go to my YouTube channel at Lead with Imkan and subscribe. Do not forget to subscribe so that you can continue receiving this insight. In fact, go on to all my social media at Lead with Imkan and subscribe and stay connected. My guest today is Dre Thompson. Hey. Oh, let's put us both back on here. Hey, Dre, welcome.
In the words of Marvin Gaye, what's going on, Naga? What's going on?
Oh, I love that. Dre is a talent acquisition specialist and keynote speaker who helps organizations solve complex workforce challenges, enabling them to attract, hire, and retain exceptional talent. With over a decade of experience in HR, DEI, and workforce development, Dre designs actionable strategies that reduce turnover, build talent pipelines, and create thriving workplace cultures. And today, my words are really faster. They're going faster than what my brain is trying to do. So bear with me, Dre. But we're going to do this because this is such an important thing that you do because we're all looking for this quality talent. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. That intro was phenomenal. I like how it just rolled off your tongue. You keep reading like that. Oh my gosh. Great job. Thank you for the amazing, warm intro. Happy to be here. Happy to drop some knowledge and just hopefully bring value to the audience. And thank you for sharing your platform with me.
Oh, awesome. You know, this is what I truly believe in is that we learn better as a community by inspiring each other and by sharing our stories and sharing our expertise. And this is why Leading the Way exists because, you know, I'm not an expert in everything. So I have to ask questions to learn from everybody else. And today we're talking about branding, personal branding. We're talking about beyond the resume. I got to tell you, first of all, this title of yours, Beyond the Resume, I'm so intrigued by it because it sounds like, you know, we're talking not just about resumes, about other things, or are we just talking about outside of the 9-to-5 job? Tell me about it. Tell me how you came to select that title, but what it stands for.
That's actually a really good question. So when you say Beyond the Resume, I came to that title based upon the fact that when someone's usually applying for an opportunity, whether it is employment or they're soliciting some type of opportunity for their own business or in life in general, you have like a resume, right? That's the standard, your CV. But now, when you go beyond the resume, sometimes people submit a cover letter. If you're a speaker, it could be the one letter. But now I would say your LinkedIn profile, because it's a professional, LinkedIn to me, I would say is professional Facebook, where now your LinkedIn profile is a much better snapshot of your brand than a resume. The cover letter is the icing on top, but really at this point in time, I would say the LinkedIn is like the bread and butter.
So when you say, you know, and I talked to a lot of others about, you know, personal branding and professional branding, and In fact, I had an expert, I think it was last month, that talked about this a little bit. But I really want to dive deeper into this with you, specifically on LinkedIn. I actually heard someone who attended your recent workshop on this this past weekend who had a lot of great things to say. She mentioned that she learned so much from your workshop about how to elevate her personal brand, which was like, oh yeah, I need to do that too. And I'm sure all of our audience members are, dying to learn more about how to elevate their personal brand, especially on professional platforms like LinkedIn. So, tell me, where do we start with this?
Well, the first thing you should do is, if you don't have a LinkedIn profile, get a LinkedIn profile. There are over 1 billion people on the platform. So if you're not on there, what I love about LinkedIn the most is that the whole purpose of the platform is to connect with other professionals. And whether you're a job seeker or an opportunity seeker, if you're looking for sales or prospects for your business, this is the place to be. Now, networking is a component of this as well. But I would start by, like, what's my purpose or what's my justification of doing this, right? I'm looking to grow my brand, and I would do a self audit or self evaluation first and say, okay, where is my brand today? And if you had trouble doing that yourself, I would utilize, first and foremost, well, I know you're a disc. I'm not gonna call you a disc junkie, but I know you're a disc advocate, so you could do a disc assessment, Myers-Briggs, but I would start with my friends and family, right? Because those are the truth tellers, the people that you spend a lot of time with, who are the most intimate or close with you, to say, what are some of my strengths? What are some of my opportunities? I've been at this, business or job hunt for a while. What are some of my strengths? And that'll give you, I'd say, a base in reference to like where you're trying to go. And then from there, once you have what your strengths and opportunities are, you can start to filter that information into your LinkedIn profile. Now, to me, my recommendation for a strong LinkedIn profile encompasses a well-defined about section. And as far as like your experience, that can be for now the base of your resume. And what I like about LinkedIn is that with a resume, and I'd say your resume should not be more than 2 to 3 pages max. But with the LinkedIn, you can get really detailed and specific with those bullet points and talk about like what you did at previous places of employment or opportunities that you've had in the past. So let's say, for an example, if you are a teacher, let's say you've been a teacher for 20 plus years and you taught in multiple school districts. Maybe when you worked at Detroit Public Schools, you taught elementary, maybe K through 5th grade. And maybe you have some high school teaching experience as well. So then you transition from elementary to high school. But on that LinkedIn profile, you can get very specific with your skills. That's a whole section in itself. And you can go into the nitty gritty of like what you actually did at these places and how you displayed leadership and your expertise. And that's the key, because with LinkedIn being a social networking platform, you can create posts, you can share articles, you can comment on other people's posts to feed the algorithm, but you really have the opportunity to to showcase yourself as a cut above the rest of your competition. Because let's face it, we are all competing for opportunities, or whether it's a job or a contract that you're bidding on, you are competing. So you need to have every arsenal in your tool or belt rather, to differentiate yourself from your competition, to put yourself in the best light.
So I want to ask you about something in regards to resumes and LinkedIn, but before that, I want to back up a little bit, and I want you to talk to us about resumes. Just the resume that we hand to an employer, or send out, seeking, when we're seeking a job, and what are best practices when it comes to your resume, because things keep changing, right? And I really don't know what is the latest thing in best practices when it comes to having a resume that someone is actually going to look at and consider you.
Okay, great. So we're going to talk about the do's and the don'ts. Let me tell you about my resume pet peeves, because as a person that views resumes all day, scan a resume and in as little as 5 seconds to like a minute. And that's usually about the snapshot of what you have to make an impression. Look at your resume as your business card, and your LinkedIn is like your virtual business card with a picture. So some don'ts. I would not put my picture on a resume due to potential bias. Your skill set has to speak for itself. Another thing that people tend to do is they list their address. As a person looking at the resume, I don't need to know that you live with Willy Wonka and the Wonka Factory. I don't care what your address is. You can just list the city. I don't need the address. The birthday, I don't need the birth date either. I just need your email, phone number, and I would even say have a hyperlink. If it's digital, hyperlink your LinkedIn profile at the top. If you're a student, because students in the beginning, you may not have a lot of work experience, list your GPA at the top as well. Some things some do's. The biggest do sounds hilarious. One of the biggest things that you should take away from this, I guess, as far as the resume piece, is that most of the time people's resumes get tossed in the trash, frisbeed, not looked at if your bullet points do not align with the job description. And I think a lot of people miss that, because let's say, for example, you're a plumber, but you're going for a teaching position. Those two jobs don't correlate anyway. But you, as the job seeker, have the burden of proof. You're like the plaintiff. You have to showcase that you're an actual fit, or your previous experience aligns with what the potential employer is looking for. And so by matching your previous experience to those bullet points in that job description, you're going to get looked at, because as the as the consultant recruiter, I'm looking at their resume like, okay, this person has, they've done their homework, so to speak. And when you don't do your homework, you're fighting against the bots because those keywords aren't in there. You're automatically going to the reject pile. It's not getting looked at. And we in the recruiting space, we call it the black hole, right? People go through sometimes a lengthy application process. You've done, 30 minutes to like an hour on this thing. And then you get that auto rejection email. And you're like, oof. But it's like, no, it's not that I didn't want to see your resume. You just didn't do put forth the effort that was required to be successful in that endeavor without having this knowledge. But that's why we're here today, right? I'm coming with the gems and nuggets to alleviate you from going down that dark hole.
As soon as you mentioned those spots, and I keep reading articles on LinkedIn and hearing from people personally, who tell me that they're getting these auto rejections. So and it's I mean, I understand that this is efficient for companies, but it's heartbreaking for people who are applying and getting denied often because of that.
Well, let me give you some more insight as to why that's happening, because sometimes I feel like TA people get a bad rep. So depending on if the level or size of the company, sometimes you'll have one recruiter with like 30 different recs across various departments. So it really depends on the industry that you're targeting. But let's say if you're at a company that's generating, let's say it's a publicly traded company, that one recruiter can have 30 recs, which means they're dealing with 30 different managers. They're having 30 different meetings. And so it's really like a time issue. They don't have the time to like really sit and piecemeal to see like, did you do the right thing? Because at the end of the day, they have stakeholders that they're looking to report to. The hiring manager wants the job to be filled. And so there are a lot of intricacies that goes into it. Another don't that people should not do, in my opinion, is that people who may not even have that experience, they'll pop something in artificial intelligence like, make me a resume for a registered nurse. And so then you have this artificial resume that's also getting screened out by the bot. But then let's say, for the sake of saying it, that the resume does pass through, you're going to bomb the interview because you can't speak to the experience at the end of the day. So it's like, I think artificial intelligence and resumes can go together if you're utilizing it to give you like a template to make your current resume stronger or aligned to that job description in a different way. But you should never verbatim take like whatever the artificial intelligence platform gives you and submit that to the job platform.
When you say keywords, I really want you to clarify this point, because there, when you're talking keywords on a website, keywords on sometimes on like a social media platform, it means the tags that you tag people in. It means different things in different ways. And when you say keywords on a resume, let's clarify this to the T, to where people know, what does that mean? And maybe even if you can give an example, if you are applying for teaching positions, what keyword do you use? If you're applying for, like a plumbing position, what keywords do you use? And how does that look like? Are you just listing words, or are they part of your description? Just so that people kind of have an understanding of what someone means by saying, make sure you have those keywords.
Okay. This is actually a two-part question. And so I am going to do my best to answer this, but I believe we need to go back to the resume first, because I should have prefaced and said that anytime you're applying to a job, you should have a base template resume that you have that's editable at all times, right? So look at your resume as like a cake. And when you get these job descriptions or jobs that you want to apply for, you're adding layers or decorations to the cake. So the job description, those keywords are like the icing and the toppings. So let's say the keywords are like the sprinkles. I'll use in a school setting, let's say a noon aide, right? Noon aides are common in schools. They help the teachers. So in a noon aide job description, you potentially would see something along the lines of, fed lunch to children, or, read stories. So let's say those were key bullet points in reference to that job. Like, these are requirements. You have had to read during lunchtime to children for, 30 minutes. So your resume needs to have those keywords from that job description in your resume from your previous experience. So if you were a noon aide, it should say, Nagam, I worked at Detroit Public Schools from 2015 to 2017. I was there for 2 years. During that time period, action verb, worked with elementary school kids, reading to them 30 minutes a day. Boom. That was what was exactly in the job description. So that's what I mean when I say keywords, or it could be specific software. So for example, some companies use Zoom, some use Microsoft Teams. That should be listed on your resume as a skill, because, okay, I don't have to guess now what your familiarity is with Zoom or Microsoft Teams. Let's say I listed Teams in the job description, worked with Microsoft Teams. If you worked at DPS for 2 years, maybe you have more than 2 years of experience, but you listed that. You took the guesswork out of me, because again, if I'm overloaded with recs, I'm reporting to different stakeholders, I'm trying to, we call it managing our desk. I need you to spell it out very plain and clearly for me.
Okay. All right. That makes it clear. Thank you. So basically, you're listing your experience, looking at the job description first, and then making sure that you're editing your resume to include some of what that job is looking for, so that you're not just
almost all of it. Because again, if you're not like transferring career, you have, again, the burden of proof is on you, right? Because there's no bias to it. Like, the recruiter doesn't know you. One benefit to LinkedIn is that sometimes when they do post these opportunities, you can find the person that actually posted the job and connect with them. And that's kind of going into the personal branding piece. I don't want to segue there just yet. I just want to be very clear that when you're looking at a job description before you apply to that job, if you meet at least, I would say 65 to 70% of the criteria, maybe the other 30% is you don't have the degree, but maybe you have the skills or previous experience, that sort of thing. As long as you meet a majority of the criteria and you can speak to it from your previous experience, yes, apply for that job. If you do not meet the criteria at all, I would, if you're not already an internal that was tapped on the shoulder and said, hey, this is an opportunity for you to, learn a new skill set, I would not apply.
Wow. Yeah, I like that. I've never thought about it this way. So even if you don't have the degree necessarily, but if you meet the majority of the criteria, you can still, because you can speak about the experience. I absolutely love that.
And I'll tell you why. That's another thing that's going on in this space right now. One of my old managers, she would often tell us and other stakeholders at this Fortune 500 company that we're going to be moving relatively soon. This was 2 years ago, towards a skilled-based society. So sometimes you'll often see in job postings, it'll say must have X number of years of experience, bachelor's degree, or equivalent experience. That equivalent experience is subjective to the hiring manager. Sometimes the hiring manager is heck bent on that person having a degree. However, the TA person or recruiter has the opportunity to push back if a candidate, let's say if you excel and check all the boxes, however, maybe you don't have the bachelor's degree, maybe you have the associates with the teaching certificate, but you have the experience, you've excelled, you've got all these recommendations, you've went above and beyond in that role, that TA person can make a case for you, but you have to, again, do your justice and sell why you're fit very clearly from your resume to the LinkedIn to the cover letter.
Wow. That's so powerful. And I'm so glad you mentioned that, because I think a lot of people are not applying because they're missing one item, or, that they feel like this is, they don't have either the degree or some of the the experience is missing, or some of the skills. And this is you saying this, confirming this. I think that's so powerful. Thank you for mentioning that. And I want to ask something else about the resume. Can I submit my resume? Can I have my resume ready, polished, good, and ready to go, and just submit it to multiple different jobs without making changes?
Heck no. And I'm saying no because you should, any job that you're applying for. So think about it like this. I'd say it's more like courting or dating. When you're dating someone, your significant other, you want to feel special and appreciated. You want it to make it feel, you want to make the experience feel intimate and special. If you apply to a job with just like, okay, here's my resume, you didn't submit a cover letter talking about like your interest or why you were interested in this opportunity in particular, you're not a thought leader and you're not standing out, and you didn't go beyond the resume. You more so said, this is my resume, almost the equivalent to saying, I'm a hottie, I'm a 10, I'm bad, like you should want me, versus again, you're trying to court the employer. And so when you're courting, it's a bit of that cat and mouse, right? You have to, it's the burden of proof is on you to like, okay, show me why I should be interested. Like, I am grateful and appreciative that you did apply to my position, but just because you applied doesn't necessarily mean you're a fit. And just because you feel like you're a fit for the opportunity doesn't mean that opportunity is for you as well. I will always champion and tell people that anytime you're applying for a job, it's a numbers game. And I think people often get caught up in the mix of, well, I applied to one job and I heard no. And I think it's okay to hear no, because again, not every opportunity is going to be for you. It's like sales. You may hear 100 no's before you get a yes. So you have to continue to put that resume out there and get the feedback. Now, let's say you get the auto rejection email. This is where LinkedIn And there is even software that is free and available to the public to where you could usually, this is a little nugget I gave in my presentation Saturday. You can sometimes find the company email of a person. Usually it's the first initial of their name and their last name at company.com. So even if you got rejected, you can even send a email saying, hey, to whom am I concerned? I applied to this position. I did receive a rejection email. Can you give me any, pointers or suggestions as to why, or, what could change? And sometimes quiet is kept. You're competing against internals, and the job market is very tough. And you have to be open to that constructive criticism and feedback, and just be willing to put yourself out there. That's what I would say.
Yeah. And I love that you said, just because you feel that you're qualified for the job doesn't mean you maybe are.
Because people do this all the time. They'll see, like, whether it's a speaking opportunity, or you're like, oh my gosh, this is a fit. This is a fit. In your head it is, but again, there are all these factors and stakeholders going into play. There are even times where jobs are posted externally where somebody that's been internal for like 3 to 5, 6 years, capped at a 3 to 4% salary increase, has been waiting to get into that department. And so they've been handpicked, and you're competing against that person too. So yes, you thought this job was for you, but I will say this. This is one of my idioms. What's meant for you is meant for you. And that's okay. Like, if you didn't get the one that you wanted at that time, something better is going to come along that's for you. And wouldn't you want something that was meant for you versus somebody else? Now, I won't lie. If there was a bag of $1 million lying around that was meant for somebody else, and it came to me, of course I'm going to be like, yeah, but
that's mine.
But that's money. That's different. But like an opportunity, if somebody tapped me on the shoulder personally and said, hey, I need you for XYZ. Oh, I'm going. If it's meant for me. But if it was meant for Nagam, then it's meant for Nagam. It's not meant for me, and that's okay, because my time is gonna come.
I love that. Well, when you talk about jobs that are meant or not meant, but jobs that are they're listed externally. Okay. So that they're listed, right? And there may be somebody on, an internal person who's been there, who's been gaining this experience, hoping to get that. And then, maybe they get hired and the job disappears all of a sudden. Now, people on the outside who are not part of this company, they look at the job, gets posted, and then it's gone. They don't understand what is going on internally. Can you talk a little bit about this? Because I see a lot of complaints about this, especially on LinkedIn, with people saying that there's a lot of fake posting of jobs.
So there's a twofold question. This is a twofold answer again. So there are several things that are going on. So one thing I can speak on is that on some of these websites, I would say Indeed, or actually I'll say ZipRecruiter more than LinkedIn. You'll have sometimes what's called a ghost job, to where this opportunity was posted, but there was really no opportunity at all. Like, somebody posted a job to solicit your information, because if that's your information is data that can be sold on a list to potential people looking to solicit you opportunities, just like anything else, right? Like your public Facebook profile is all data that's being sold to markets to companies that want to advertise things to us, right? So that's one fold of it. The other piece to answer that is that the jobs are being posted externally and internally at the same time, but they're being posted externally for compliance purposes, right? Like if you're a federal contractor, or depending on what sector of business you're in, if you're doing business with the government, you're legally obligated to post that job for a number of days, even though you may have someone internal that fits the bill, just to say that you posted it and that you did your best to diversify the candidate pool or give people a fair shot. However, again, it's a slippery slope. I could see from a candidate's perspective how that could be very misleading, but the silver lining in that is that you've exposed yourself to another company, your resume to a company that may not have considered you before. And just because you didn't get that particular job, we now have your resume on file. And if other opportunities come up, you could get a inbox email for another job or opportunity in the future.
I see. I want to go back to the resume for a quick second. How long should your resume be when you're
No more than 3 pages max. I really would say 2. And I would say this: I don't need your life story, because I'll tell you mine. Like, I used to work at, when I was in high school, I worked at Burger King. Burger King is not on my resume. I don't need to know that you worked at, if you're not in the hospitality sector, right, or the fast food sector. And I think sometimes the resume can be used as far as like ageism as well. Like, I don't need to know that you started working in 1980 if it's not relevant to like your current experience or job, right? Really, you should just have 2 or 3 jobs. Now, if you were, what companies love, what a lot of hiring managers love, I will say this, is they love continuity. I love, and hiring managers love, when they see a resume, when somebody has maintained continuity or worked at the same place. Let's say you had 15 years at Ford or GM. I don't have to do any guesswork. You worked here for 15 years. Now, a lot of the younger people, I'm a millennial, the Gen Z kids and under, they are not staying at a company for 15 years, especially if things change, and younger people are job hopping. I'll just be very transparent in saying that, because I'll say this too. I know you asked me about the resume, but this all kind of goes back together in justification as to why the younger people or emerging or early career talent are transitioning jobs more quickly, because they understand that when you're an external, you have more leverage. Early in our conversation, I talked to you about, usually when you're an internal, you're capped at like a 3 to 4% salary increase. When you're external, you don't have to tell Detroit Public Schools, hey, I'm over here in Royal Oak making, 75,000, but I'll come see what you guys are talking about for 90,000. And the kids, or the younger individuals that are job hopping, you have other individuals up in age that are job hopping as well. What they understand is, okay, I see the pay range, I see what I'm at, I can maintain employment where I am, put my resume, LinkedIn profile, and cover letter out there to see what I get. And if it'll better my salary and potential cost of living situation, why not? However, what that does, if you're not, most companies want to see you there at least 2-3 years. If you're job hopping every 6 months or a year, those are red flags. Those are the recruiter red flags. It's because it's like, whoa, whoa, whoa. And I will put a caveat in this and say, unless it was a contract position, but the resume should specify that it was a contract position or you were a temp. That's okay. But if every 6 months, and I would say this is more common with blue collar hourly workers, where if a job is paying $1 more or 50 cents more, people will leave because they're hourly. And those entry level positions usually come down to, how much can I make per hour? I would preface it and say that. But if every 6 to 8 months you're just bouncing here, I was at Ford, I was at GM, or I went from Target to Starbucks to Kmart to Radio Shack to freaking Toys R Us, and these places don't exist anymore, I don't want anything to do with you. Because it costs so much money to onboard a full-time person, from the setting you up for the benefits, paying somebody like me to put you through the process, set you up for a drug test and a background check. All these things cost the company money. So if we're going to put forth, I got to speak from the business perspective. I hate to do this, but if we're going to invest money time and human resources into an individual, I need to see stability.
Wow. What I want to ask a question about the cover letter, and then I want to jump back to the resume for a second, because I feel like that's important as well. But I want to know, how important is a cover letter to an employer, whether they ask for it. So, okay, how important it is, and whether they ask for it or not, should we provide it anyway? And what should it have?
Okay. Very, 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 very good question. Oh, you dropping some heat today, Miss Alsamari. Okay, so cover letter. I'm a proponent of the cover letter. There are some TA people or recruiters or HR people that are like, whatever with the cover letter. I'll tell you why I'm a proponent of it and why you should always submit one. I'm a proponent of the cover letter because I strongly believe that 2 to 3 pages doesn't do enough justice to showcase your work experience or why you're a fit for the role. To me, the cover letter gives you ample opportunity in one page, whether it be 2 to 3 to 5 paragraphs, to say, one, why you're a fit for the opportunity, two, why you're interested in the opportunity, three, what skill set and values you can bring to the employer, in addition to why you're a fit. That is why I'm a proponent of the cover letter. Another reason, number 4, I will say, is that if you're this is another way to differentiate yourself from your competition, because not everybody's going to submit the cover letter. But as the HR person that's reading the resume, if I see you have a cover letter attached, in the back of my head, I'm going, okay, this person put the extra time. Let me read and review this. And it shows you actually cared. You didn't plop something from AI, even though you could do that too. But this is your chance to get personal. And even if you don't know the person's name, you could put to whom it may concern. You could even link your LinkedIn profile, your personal blog, articles you may have written. This is an opportunity to really do it up and say, I'm that he, she, or they, and I came to play. Okay.
Wow. Okay. I was I was hoping that you would say no, it's not important. But yeah, that makes complete sense, because it's your opportunity to basically, glow and show up with whatever. I didn't know you could actually include your blogs, your articles, or
I'm saying you could either quick hyperlink it if it's digital, or you could say link to your website. Let's say if you were a teacher and you did tutoring on the side, or I've helped this many people, I won this award. Like this is what makes you stand out, and this is why I'm a proponent of the LinkedIn profile too. Your page is, again, professional Facebook. Why do people like Facebook? Because it's entertaining, and people like to show out on their page, right? So your professional page, if I land on your page, I want to be wild. I want to go through that profile and be like, this person's a superstar. I'd be a fool if I didn't hire this person or connect with this person, because they're just doing so much. They're a leader in their community. They volunteer their time, or they showcase their thoughts on current industry trends, and they outline what skills they have very clearly in the skills section of the profile. That about me, I really felt like, even though I haven't had a personal conversation with that person, I viewed their page and I got a very good snapshot or glimpse into who they are, and I liked what I saw, so I want to pursue that a bit further. That's what encompasses the personal brand. When you can do that, when you can make somebody not fall in love with you, but make someone interested in you without having to talk to you, that's your personal brand.
I like that comparison, to think of your cover letter as that first landing page they see when they go to your website or your social media. I love that. Okay, back to resume. On LinkedIn, there's an option for us to download the LinkedIn profile and use that as a resume. What do you think of that?
I would say that is subjective to the hiring manager and the job. I think in the case of hourly talent, and hourly talent is predominantly on Indeed versus LinkedIn. I sometimes find hourly talent on LinkedIn. I feel like you should have it regardless. I would, again, I would disagree with submitting that, and I would only say that because your LinkedIn is functioning similar to your standard resume without being edited. I wouldn't submit it because you're not making me feel special, Nagam. If you just kind of copy and pasted your LinkedIn and you didn't put my keywords in there, it's not all fuzzy and fluffed up. It's more so like you just kind of lobbed this over saying this is enough. And I'm telling you, it's not enough when you're competing.
Yeah.
It's almost like showing up to the race with the shoes, but you didn't put any socks on. How far you think you're going to get?
Wow, I like that. Yeah, yeah, I like that. A little bit about LinkedIn before we move on to something else. With polishing your, LinkedIn is it's your personal brand. It's your, personal professional brand where people come, they see your profile and they learn about you. What do you recommend for there is a right after your name, if I recall correctly, not the about section that's long, the brief section, the summary, I think it's called. What do you recommend people put there to showcase who they are?
If you don't have LinkedIn Premium, that's a really good question. That summary, this is what I would do. And I don't want to get in trouble for this. I would utilize the platform to look up individuals that had a similar title or background to myself and profiles that I really liked, even though I didn't know these people. I would try to mimic their profile as close to mine as possible without directly copying them verbatim. And this is where the artificial intelligence comes into play. If I had a paid version of ChatGPT, Copilot, if you're using DeepSeek for free, I would post that link and I would prompt, customize my LinkedIn page to be similar to X link, but with my information, and see what the artificial intelligence gives you, but make it still do your own due diligence and customization to fit it to your needs. Do not just rely solely on the technology. You're using the technology to boost the brain stems or whatever, or ideate. You're just looking to ideate with it, not verbatim, just copy it. No matter how good it is, you still got to put that human personalized extra spin on it, because when it's personalized and not automated, I can connect with you. I cannot connect with the self-checkout kiosk at my local Kroger, but I can get jiggy and get groovy with the cashier lady that says, would you like paper or plastic? Because that's personal.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. And then you gave two great pieces of advice here. One is don't take AI's, whatever comes up verbatim, and personalize it and use your own voice and your own, perspective. And then the other one is about looking at other LinkedIn profiles. I don't think that's you're doing anything wrong. You're getting ideas. You're getting ideas of what other successful LinkedIn profiles look like in your industry, in your niche, and making it yours. You're gonna make it yours. You're not gonna steal anybody else's work. So no, this is gold. Thank you for that.
And we're human, right? We're all supposed to be striving to learn. I love learning, even though I'm the son of a teacher, so I've got educators in my family. I had no choice to learn, but you should constantly be looking to yourself and learn from others, because anytime conversations like this are really good, because when you can expose yourself to a different viewpoint, there's a takeaway from that you can apply, or there was a message or a lesson in that interaction. And so when you go to somebody else's page, you have the opportunity, without even connecting with them, to decipher or gain information. And you may gain so much information just from viewing someone's page that it makes you want to connect with them. And it all goes back to the personal brand. You're not going to even put that person's profile into your artificial intelligence based off the example if I gave you, if they didn't give you a glimpse into who they were as a person.
Yeah.
Because they accomplished the mission of coming across personable or in their brand, or finding, or someone that you found fascinating rather.
Yeah, absolutely. And then let's I really want to learn more about talent solutions now. Tell me, how did this journey start for you?
Talent Solutions Now.
Yeah.
The journey. I've been in the recruiting space since 2013, I would say. I actually had no prior experience in this space. I was working for myself prior to what I do today, which is professional speaking, personal brand development, professional development, and staffing for solopreneurs as well as small minority companies. I started out in the trucking business. I had 2 cargo vans and a Freightliner semi truck looking for drivers. So my first experience recruiting actually dealt with Craigslist, looking for these cargo van drivers and semi drivers. And I was slightly younger than I am now, and I had no experience in this space. And so I was conducting interviews, meeting people in person. I was managing payroll. I was doing all this at myself at a very young age. And that experience molded me, and I would say helped me land my first corporate position in Dearborn, Michigan some years ago. And the job that I actually got first in corporate was recruiting for pre-production test car drivers for the big 3, so Ford, Chrysler, and Stellantis. So that previous experience working on my own, figuring that out by myself, I was able to do that while I was in school, and I was able to showcase that in the interview. I could talk about my previous experience. And so I utilized myself in that example to say, like, you got to walk the talk. When you get in an interview, they're like, so tell me about, name my company was No Hesitation Transportation. Who did I work with? Who were the stakeholders? What were the methods that I went about accomplishing the task, which is the STAR method: situation, task, action, result. That's a nugget to help you prepare for interviews. But I can speak to my previous experience intelligently, and I had real life stories and examples. And I would even say that for a job seeker, as speakers, we know how important stories are, but when you can use your previous experience and stories to talk about your situations and how you overcame XYZ, or you were able to deal with conflict in the workplace, or how you handled a problem, you're setting yourself apart from the competition, because talking about yourself can be hard, but it doesn't have to. So anytime you have those stories or those wins, I would say write them down. Have a voice note that you record to yourself so that you don't forget, or write it down somewhere in a notebook. Like, so for me, one of my wins when I left this Fortune 500 company that was generating well over, I want to say $150 billion a year, whatever it was in the billions. I put, based upon their profit sharing formula, that I generated, it was either 1.5 million or 2.2 million over a fiscal year for this company. And how did I go about doing that? I could speak to the facts of my day-to-day job, what I did, what were my wins. Now, some people too, people like KPIs. I'm not a huge numbers person, but I would say in the resume, incorporate some KPIs too. Did you save the company money? Did you generate the company money? Over what period? And what actions did you take that led to that? Going back to those success stories and accomplishments. Because again, that's the differentiator. If Candidate A did not submit a cover letter or any KPIs, but candidate B submits the cover letter. They're aligning their resume to the job description and they got KPIs. I'm calling that person because they did the assignment and they got the LinkedIn profile and the KPIs are in the LinkedIn profile as well. In addition to achievements, like you sold me.
I want to go back a little bit to something you mentioned really quickly. STAR method. What is that?
The STAR method, which stands for situation, task, action, result, is an interview method that is typically used when candidates are being assessed as a fit for a job. So, for example, a question an interviewer, hiring manager, even a recruiter during a phone screen may ask is, tell me a time that you dealt with time management or even let's say conflict. You know, what did you do? So you have to utilize the STAR method. What was the situation? What was the task? What were the actions that you took? And what was the result?
Mm.
And so that goes back to the bullet points in the job description and the keywords. When you get that interview, the interviewer or hiring manager is trying to gauge your familiarity with what you listed in your resume and see how well your experience corresponds to that job and if you can speak to it. And I'll say this too, a lot of people can be good on paper, and one of my idioms or idioms is that you still have to know how to talk, because you can be the smartest person in the world, but if you cannot advocate or speak for yourself, you are not an ideal candidate for an employer. You're just not. Because you still have to work with other people, and to work with other people, you still have to speak.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that, communication is needed across the board, right? And no matter where you're coming from and where you're going, you have to have that piece in order to get your point across and connect with others. That's a great point. Dre, two last things to end today with. One, what is an advice that you have, maybe something that you have gone through yourself and you don't, you want others to learn from, you want others to get to hear it from you and learn from it and apply it, so they don't have to go through this difficulty. And two, I want you to tell us, people who, organizations who want to work with you, how do they find you? Where can they connect with you? So let's start with the advice piece.
The advice piece I would say is, don't be afraid to put yourself out there. And I talked about this in my seminar or workshop Saturday as well, is that I believe that we all suffer not necessarily from imposter syndrome, but a lot of the times that inner voice. I feel like everyone has this inner voice, and it took me a long time to get over this. It's just that self-doubt, like, am I enough? And I feel like sometimes when people apply for jobs, they're like, I don't know, like, will they see me? Like, we come up with all these justifications in our head as to like why we're not a fit, and you have to power through that. I'll even use myself for example again. During COVID, I remember I was in the entertainment space or live event space, and then the COVID mandates came out, live events got canceled. I had to pivot. COVID's about to end. I'm on unemployment, and I put myself back in the job market. I vividly remember submitting a resume that had errors. It was not as polished. I didn't have all the information that I'm sharing with you today, but the recruiter that worked with me at this time, this was a time when some people were collecting unemployment, some people didn't want to work just due to the mandates. It was a time where if you were in the market, people were willing to work with you. This recruiter saw me for who I was, had a lengthy, at least hour conversation with me to gauge my skill set, and actually edited and customized the resume with me to solicit me to this Fortune 500 company. So I say all that to say, don't be afraid to put yourself out there, because when you get uncomfortable, people will sometimes meet you where you are and be willing to help you.
Yeah.
And that recruiter, to this day, she has no clue how big of an impact that she had on my life just for soliciting me for that opportunity. It literally changed the trajectory of my life. Like,
Amazing.
I'm not even sure I'd be here now having this conversation with you if I didn't take the initiative to submit myself for that opportunity.
I love it.
And as far as how if people want to work with me, you can definitely reach out to me at www.Thompson, THOMPSON.com. And if you're looking for someone, whether it's for speaking needs, consulting needs for your business, I'm definitely interested. I potentially your guy. Let's have a conversation and see how we can be mutually beneficial to each other. I'm all about networking and seeing others succeed.
Amazing. No, you're not potentially. You are the guy to go to for that.
I'm trying to be humble. I'm definitely trying to be humble. That was a shameless plug. I don't even want to be like.
I've heard you speak and you're amazing. And it's so good to have you here. You did definitely drop a lot of gems today. Thank you so much for really clarifying a lot of things when it comes to resume and personal branding.
Again, I really appreciate you having me here and taking the time and just sharing your platform with me. And it will not go unnoticed. And I'm very grateful to you. Thank you.
This is why we have Leading the Way. So we can have gems like this, like today, so we can learn from each other and grow as a community. And next month, I'm having Emily Bowman, and she is from 12 Trees Coaching LLC, and we are talking leadership. So if you want to come back next month, we're talking leadership. And she holds a bunch of other roles, which I don't know how she sleeps, but we are all about learning, and we are going to learn a lot from Emily. Thank you for joining us. Do not stop the conversation here. Leave your questions for Dre in the comments, and we will see you next month on Leading the Way. Have a wonderful night.
They have more degrees than a thermometer.
When you're engaged,
Stands for their interest, or they like.
There's a lot of
Your
planning.
daughters will be here and you
I
will
believe
be
in mental health.
Sure that we have mental
When
We travel together on the path to intentional leadership, one conversation at a time. We go down a new road of insight with an expert guest who knows what it takes to navigate the opportunities and challenges of leadership. Why? Because they've already been there. So grab your compass and whatever else you need, and let's set out, leading the way.